Pin is one of the most popular characters in BFDI. When you think of this show, she's probably one of the first characters you think of. She made it her farthest in BFDIA by a long mile, placing 5th place, way ahead of her 19th/18th placement in Teapot, and her second to last place in BFDI if rejoins nullify the first 3 bits. Despite this, I think BFDIA was her worst season, in my opinion, with her loss of her original personality, and so much missed potential. And I'll give my input on what I would do with Pin if I was the one that was writing the season. This might be my most in-depth video yet, so get ready because this, I don't know, might be a long one. I won't talk about Teapot or BFB. I think she was okay in both of those seasons. In BFDI, Pin was the team's bossy leader. She was rude and honestly pretty funny. The most notable moments being the Pin, wrong finger, throwing Spongy overboard, punching Woody across the face, and barfing on him. There was way more of her being mean, but it is quite funny. It would have been great to see Pin like this at BFDIA, but as soon as episode 1 of BFDIA, Pin just became background character number 17. She does nothing. No rude comments, no notable interactions with her own team. Just as Donut is shown in a harsher light. It really seems like they wanted Donut to get eliminated for episode 2. In episode 2, Teardrop had no interactions with Coiny or Pin, so it was just those two. The ultimate duo of BFDI, and all they do is plant seeds in the ground and make soup. Pin does show an interest with plants, but this is never really brought up much again. Oddly in Teapot, it's Gatey who's the plant nerd of teammates. In episode 3, she still does nothing. With Needle and Teardrop on the team, there's lots of room for Pin to have funny lines. In episode 4, Pin is a bit more harsh near the beginning. She pushed Pencil and Match, killing Bubble in the process to recover Coiny. Pin suggests building a farm for Dream Island this episode. It would have been more interesting if it was like a crop farm, linking back to her, fascination in plants. However, it's just an animal farm. BFDIA 5 begins with Pin trying to be friends with Bubble, which is quite nice to see. Then, after they grow a bit of bond over the hatred to Leafy, Leafy starts to become friendly with Bubble, and then Pin literally attempts murder on Leafy. Bubble runs off to do something important, leaving Pin by herself, and Book and Ice Cube walk by. Then, Pin attempts to get Ice Cube to swing with her, telling Book that she is an awful friend to Ice Cube for not letting her decide. Then, Ice Cube says she decides she wants to go to Match's dance party too. While Pin was having this big ol' speech about how bad Book is, she is holding a literal knife to their faces, which obviously the vengeful Ice Cube will definitely resent Pin for in the future. Puffy then takes Pin's limbs as it was a mandatory prize, and Pin tries to argue that it wasn't her fault that the Puffball speaker box got stabbed. But Pin still intended to stab somebody with a knife. Unfortunately, Pin goes back to being boring old Pin. She does suggest threatening Puffball, but that kind of seems like more of a Coiny idea. Also, side note, why did Pin not want to tell Coiny where she got all the money from? I mean, yeah, Coiny said he didn't want to be next to Nickel or else something bad happens, but nothing bad actually did happen, so I don't get what all the fear's about. Before I talk about post-hiatus BFDIA episodes, I must mention one scene in BFB 6, which kinda set up Coiny and Pin as some of the most popular characters. Like the little speech that Coiny has with Pin that episode. It's kinda controversial, as most people saw it as a nice moment. Some other people saw it as kind of coming out of nowhere, including me. I know that Coiny isn't the main focus of this video, however, I must say that after the hiatus, Coiny has been toned down a bit from his meaner personality. Like, in earlier episodes of BFDIA, he used to threaten other contestants to join Wobunch.
Join, I'll ignite you with fire!
However, in episode 6, he just asks, while slightly grinning,
"Hey guys!
Does anybody want to switch
in this
to
episode,
our
Pin seems to
team?"
know the side effects of the yellow tomato, which is a nice callback to her knowledge of the yo-yo seeds. At least we get to see Pin pick on Icy a little with the headphones. Pin and Coiny are also way closer friends than before. In earlier episodes, she used to talk to the other members just as much as Coiny, but during and after episode 6, they are way closer friends. In episode 7, Spongy eats asbestos, and Pin does nothing at all. Wow. We get a little bit more in episode 8. Pin seems to care a lot about Coiny, questioning Spongy on why he has a disliking to Coiny and trying to save him from the register. Pin also seems to care about Spongy's feelings a little, asking him if he wants to talk to Coiny to save his feelings. It makes sense that Pin cares a bit about Coiny since they are close friends. However, I feel like season 1 Pin, they just told Spongy he's wrong or stupid, seeing that he has a disliking to Coiny. I know character development exists, however, having Pin go from a rude leader to nice character number 37 in between seasons feels kind of odd. Wouldn't it be a bit more interesting to see Pin grow to be nicer throughout early BFDIA? I know that the creators probably did not care at all during early BFDIA since they were still pretty young. However, post-hiatus they still probably could have changed Pin's personality to be mean, so you can have an arc like that. It's not like they're against making Pin mean. There is nothing to go that in depth in about episode 9, so unfortunately I will not talk about the writing genius that is of Pin's macaroni dance. I know, how tragic. Episode 10 only has one scene with Pin doing something notable, and it kinda sucks. Pin just doesn't want to help her team because Book didn't want to swing with her a few months ago, which is really petty and something that season 1 Pin probably would have done, but not the newer, nicer Pin we've been seeing in past episodes. And on the note of Pin hating Book and Icy, think about how interesting it would have been if there was an actual rivalry between Free Smart and Woolbunch. It would make sense, since apparently Pin has been keeping this resentment towards Book and Ice Cube for not swinging with her, but no, it's only brought up now. I'ma be real, in episode 11, Pin is such a victim to Free Smart. She's done nothing wrong to Ice Cube. Threaten her with knives? Oh, and Pin is such a nice person who's such a good team player. Being petty with Book and choosing not to help the team because of that. Gee, do I have COVID or something? I don't know where all these coughs are coming from. Ice Cube is so mean for using the mandatory prize of removing a contestant's face. Anyway, I know what you're saying, but Ice Cube could have picked immunity. Pin was the one that told Ice Cube to pick removing someone's face. She actively wanted somebody to get their face removed permanently. Of course Pin deserved that. To be fair, that doesn't really affect Ice Cube's popularity that much. She probably would have gotten eliminated in episode 12 anyway, but pins that problem onto Free Smart as a general. Nobody else was included into Ice Cube's decision, but Pin just chooses to annoy Free Smart for what Ice Cube did in multiple episodes later on. Ruby was definitely very rude to Pin for shrinking her, because Pin couldn't even talk. What was she supposed to do? I hear you saying in BFDIA 12. However, literally everyone else treated Pin like she's normal. Coiny, her closest friend, threatened to crush her because she couldn't help him when she couldn't say a thing.
Real helpful there, Pin. I should crush you for how useless.
And yet Pin's upset at Ruby for just shrinking her. I think you should maybe focus on your closest friend literally threatening to kill you just because you couldn't do something. You physically couldn't do something. Also, either way, I'm pretty sure anybody would have just picked Pin because nobody actually knew if Pin was still conscious at the time. And either way, what was Pin gonna do? Like, she still couldn't move at all, so shrinking her, in fact, actually helped our team because it made her more movable for them, you know? Also, yes, I know the show never states that the last two prizes that were used on Pin were actually mandatory. However, in BFDIA 5, Fiery Speaker Box says that the prizes are mandatory, and so it probably would stay the same for those two prizes. Pin, telekinetically tells Coiny how she's upset at Free Smart for what she's done to him, which is like you could have avoided those by not telling Ice Cube to kill somebody off, like pretty much kill somebody off. And also, Pin should not care at all about being shrunk. As I said, it helped her team, and like, she couldn't move at all. But it's something she keeps on waffling about. Also, that episode's challenge was kinda clickbaity. It's marketed as like a bug dodgeball thing, but in reality, you just have to die to get out. BFDIA 13 might be Pin's best episode this season. She telepathically tells Coiny what he could do to save her, and after all the effort Coiny puts through, he realizes that he could not save his friend, which was actually a pretty sad ending. For episode 14, I'll mainly talk about the ending. Throughout the rest of the episodes beforehand, Cheese and Coiny are mostly fine. However, I mostly love episode 14. It's my top 3, third place. It's behind episode 6 and 8. I don't know what order 6 and 8 are, but Pin weighs this episode down into third place. At the end of the episode, Pin gets mad and starts a big ol' dramatic speech about how they ripped off her face, which, if you've been paying attention, was mostly her fault. It was also partially caused by Ice Cube, who isn't one of the 3 people Pin electrocutes and gets mad at. Then she talks about how they crushed her body, which has never happened. I've checked. Nope, they never crushed Pin at all. Go check. Free Smart has never crushed Pin. It's Coiny that threatened her, so maybe she get mad at Coiny. And Pin gets mad that they didn't let Ice Cube swing with her, which was Ice Cube's choice, and Ice Cube didn't even want to swing with her, so I don't know why she's getting mad at Book and Ruby about this. The writers clearly intended this scene to be Pin finally getting revenge on Free Smart, but Free Smart are mostly in the right entirely, in fact. And yeah, I know what you're all thinking, but they stole Pin's song, I hear you say. Go to minute 16, second 46 of that episode and tell me what's happened. If you can't feel bothered, Pin steals from them. The whole "you shouldn't have shrunk me" line is just a bad excuse. She just wanted to win. So I feel Free Smart is kind of justified in stealing Pin's song. And despite all of this, the show never points out the fact that Pin is in the wrong at all. This scene brings down the episode, a fantastic episode, from an S tier to an A tier in my opinion, and it's kinda sad. Heck, I've seen some comments even talking about how Pin deserved that ending scene, which, what? You know, where's Pin's big ol' dramatic speech when Fries and Balmy both steal her raft? And in episode 15, when she says, "That's what I call karma," with extra paprika, that genuinely makes me want to punch the screen every time I hear her say that.
Eliminated! That's called karma, with extra paprika!
And the show still never calls out Pin at all for being in the wrong somehow. Anyway, in this episode, Pin seems to have a sudden hatred towards Pencil. Her hatred has mostly been towards Book and Ice Cube, so her suddenly hating pretty much anyone else in Free Smart seems kind of odd. Anyway, at the end of the episode, they make a joke about Pin's "that's speech, but I feel like it was more there to be a silly little joke and not actually the writers being self-aware that Pin is in the wrong for the last few episodes. However, Pin has been betrayed in this episode, is quite a mean and annoying character, so obviously next episode she'll be eliminated. I mean, Lai got out and she was just a little mean in BFB, so of course Pin will be voted out in a landslide. So out of all the characters, people thought that generally Balmy should get out of all the characters. Balmy was a really lovable character and he was actually kind of fun, and his dynamic with hated and then liking Fries was actually kind of funny. And everybody opted to keep Pinning over him. Like, I get like mean characters are interesting and so any excuse to keep them in a vote to eliminate show, but like, Pin breaches the line on being utterly annoying. I get people deserve to have their own opinions, but this elimination really did not make that much sense. Also, if people voted Balmy for being boring, then Tennis Ball and Coiny should have probably gotten eliminated way sooner. Like, I'm not being specifically rude towards them, it's just I feel like throughout the series they've done pretty much the same as Balmy. I genuinely wish that Balmy was put in the heart so that way we get to see more interactions between him and Fries, and then maybe he wouldn't have gotten out so soon. Anyway, let's talk about the main character of this video. Pin. In episode 16, it's mostly Pin's fault due to her kicking Nickel out of the team and then making Wobunch need to have a third member. That Needle has to do the annoying team swapping thing, which I thought was just kind of unfunny. I really wish Needle just stuck to Free Smart, as that is her better team, and yet people dislike the Free Smart Needle more. Why did people do that? Pin also actively kills Pencil and Book near the end of this episode, so obviously, being a mean character, you know, people will vote her out. And before I go talk about the fact that Pin didn't get eliminated, I must say she's also really insufferable. Anyway, how did Pencil get eliminated in this episode? I swear, before I start this next rant, I must say, if you voted off Pencil or any other character in BFDIA, or voted off any other character in Teapot because they were competing in another season, that's just stupid logic, and I immediately lose some respect in your opinion for that. Pencil has been at like her best behaved this season and didn't actually do anything that bad. And no, Free Smart is not like a cult. What the hell are you on about? I would have cared way less about Pencil's elimination if Pin was actually funny while she was being mean. But she wasn't. She was just being annoying. She was just being irritating. I just wanted to scream at her face. This elimination is probably single-handedly the most frustrating elimination out of the entire series. Like, all seasons. Like, just please, if somebody here dislikes Pencil, I respect your opinion, but like, what was the thought process? I can't even think of like half the stuff Pin does in this episode as well, but none of it is really important. BFDIA 18 is a great episode of the show, and I know you're expecting me to go on a rant about how Pin weighs down this episode a bunch, and you're wrong. I think Pin is actually great this episode. Firstly, her being mean is actually really funny. It's like, actually really funny, like her just randomly killing Tennis Ball. That's funny. At least the show's aware that Pin is morally wrong. Pin betraying Coiny at the end was actually kind of a really good moment, and it really made me care about those characters. It was a genuinely great moment, and it's really portrayed Pin as like the big ol' antagonist of the show. Also, side note, I would have loved a final 3 of Book, Fries, and Pin. You know, with Pin betraying Coiny, that leaves a lot of room for lots of cool ideas for next episode and how Coiny would feel about Pin afterward, so I really hope they do something interesting with that. You know, foreshadowing is a really good narrative device. If you have seen my video on BFDIA 19, you would know I did not like what they did with Pin and Coiny that episode. They just made Coiny not care about his closest ally betraying him, and Pin's only slightly malicious act was tripping Book over near the end. Very mean indeed. I go more in depth in the video I made in that episode. BFDIA 20 is a horrible episode for Pin and Coiny. Coiny has made it clear last episode that he didn't care about Pin betraying him, so it makes sense for Book to be the one to get Pin eliminated, as she has caused Book the most pain throughout the entire season. It would have been a great moment that would have seriously improved both the characters, but no, let's just have Coiny get the big old dramatic moment where he's just petty for Pin leaving him in episode 18, and also because she was the biggest threat left in the game. That was his words exactly. Coiny was not personally affected at all by Pin's betrayal, not at all, so why is he the one that gets the big old dramatic moment with her? It should have clearly been Book if the writers really wanted to make it so Coiny didn't care at all. I'm not a fan of how early they eliminated Pin. As I said earlier, I feel like Pin would be a great antagonist for the final 3. But if they do what BFDI did and have it a vote between the final 3, they still could have gotten Pin out around episode 4, but them leaving Pin to be easily voted off in 5th place seems kind of early. I wouldn't really care all too much if we actually did get a good ending for her, which we sadly didn't. BFDIA 21 was a pretty fun episode. It was nice to see Leafy and Pin together for the first time in a good while. However, I think Pin got a change of heart a bit too quickly. I'm pretty sure it happens within one scene. And it also seems like her attitude went more into a season 1 self. Not physically though. I mean, I'm not complaining, I like the sassy and slightly rude Pin. But then, after 2 whole years of this, Pin finally gets eliminated, and then gets exposed for oozing on pig yum. Soon after, Pin begins to crash out and nearly destroys Dream Island. Kinda selfish since Coiny's still competing. Why don't wait until you know he's eliminated? And then, as of me writing and recording this video, Pin's last moments are spent sacrificing herself to save Woody. It was actually kind of nice. It didn't come out of nowhere, since earlier in the season, Pin mentioned how she was so sorry for how she treated Woody in last season, so it was kind of nice to see her have this moment of saving Woody. And the whole main character bit throughout that entire episode was quite fun. The only problem I have with BFDIA 22 is that Pin does try to destroy Dream Island, which doesn't really feel that in character. I feel like Pin would at least have the modesty to be aware that it wasn't just her that built the island. For this last part of the video, I thought it'd be fitting for me to put my input on how I would change Pin. I mean, I've been thrown so much criticism that I might as well try suggesting a few fixes, although this probably won't even matter because the show's already been made. Just think of this as a hypothetical. Firstly, there will not be that many drastic changes around episodes 6 to 13. Firstly, I'll make Pin more of a rude character throughout these episodes. Think of a more tame Season 1 Pin. Like, she has an occasional rude line, but like, not the kind where it's like, oh, that's a mean character, but more of a, oh, that's a nice and funny sassy character. Another idea for this phase of Pin's character would be to have her and Free Smart have a team rivalry. Think about it. She'd still be petty about Book not wanting to swing with her, and this will maybe fuel a rage for her and Free Smart to battle out in challenges, you know, being the two main forces that fight each other. Pin should be painted in the wrong in this rivalry, but like not in like the deadly wrong and she's morally like the worst person on earth, but just more of like a slight pettiness she has towards Free Smart. Also in episode 10, she'll actually help Book and Spongy build the ice cream stand, but she'll be more rude towards Pin throughout the entire time as they work on it. Then in episode 11, you should have Pin push Icy to use the face remover more, not letting Ice Cube say her word on it and just keep on pushing her. And then Ice Cube finally gets pushed over the edge and decides that she will use the face remover on Pin. From there, pretty much mostly everything will just stay the same until the end of BFDIA 14, where Ruby will mention that stealing Pin's song was payback for her stealing her jetpack, and Pin's big ol' monologue towards Book and Ruby would be more like the villainous scene she has at the end of BFDIA 18, painting her at this villainous role. Throughout episodes 15 to 17, Pin will stay mostly the same, however maybe have a few more comedic bits like her just randomly killing people and whatnot, because that's kind of funny. And we'll keep up the same murderous Pin in episode 19, maybe she'll like kill others to steal their items before they can return it to their boxes, fun stuff like that. I'll have it so Pin purposely tries to avoid Coiny when it comes to sabotaging the others and killing them, and I'll have it a plot point that Coiny is more silent and upset after Pin's betrayal and is way less motivated than usual. The biggest change I'm wanting to make with Pin is have it so it's Book that ends up defeating Pin at the end, as for the little rewrite I've set up throughout the entire series, it'd be Pin that caused Book the most pain, and so something in this episode would cause Book to finally snap and decide to defeat Pin once and for all. Also, I want to keep Pin as more of an antagonistic role, so it wouldn't make sense if Book and Pin did team up again, so I'll just get rid of that whole part of the episode. I don't know how Book would get in a situation where she can finally get Pin up for elimination, maybe similar to how Coiny did, or some other wacky way the writers could think of, but I feel having Book defeat Pin and get her up for elimination would be way more satisfying. BFDIA 21 would stay mostly the same, except it would start with Pin being more sulky and bratty in the beginning. She'd slowly start to warm up to Leafy and start to enjoy her time with the antics with Leafy, and at the end realize that her friendship with Coiny is what she really wants in the end. As stated, the whole destroying Dream Island bit does seem a bit out of character, but I'll still have that ending scene where Pin saves Woody in the end, because I thought it was quite nice. In conclusion, Pin has been one of the most inconsistent characters throughout the series, and honestly I've not been a big fan of her. I really wish that they did keep the BFDIA 18, you know, personality of Pin being like a big old villain and whatnot, at least for episode 19. Also, if you do like or love Pin, that's completely okay. Opinions are really good. Because of that, I want to hear what you guys think of Pin in the comments, and also think about how you would rewrite Pin. Also, I'd really enjoy doing another video focused on one character in the future, so if you have any characters that you think I should do videos like this for, just comment them and I might do them one day. And seeing that you've made it this far, maybe consider liking and subscribing. If you don't, either way, have a good day. This has been an epic video on the Beanie Crew's channel.